Fans of love and hip-hop may never forget this particular moment, but it may be the best of all. There had been rumors of a dramatic altercation during a private dinner scene for days. However, rumors circulating from the set are now creating an even more bizarre image. There are other insiders who claim that things got so out of hand that Ciara allegedly threw a whole drink directed at Mendeecees, and the reason why Erica Mina's confession allegedly stopped the entire table cold. They claim that it began as informal discussion. The nice producers like to say that they're just catching up. However, underlying the laughing was a storm that was about to pause. Even the crew was reportedly stunned by Erica's accusation about Mendeecees, which broke through the commotion. The atmosphere changed in seconds. Ciara's gaze was fixed on Mendeecees, and she spoke in a clipped tone. He allegedly attempted self-defense. Others claim that he grinned. At that moment, the glass rose. After the ice hit, there was mayhem. It's buzzing on the internet now. The cast is reticent, and the same question keeps coming up. What was it that Erica said that finally got to Ciara? No outsider could quite place the beginning of the shift, but the tension had been growing for weeks. There was a particular weight in the air before everybody even sat down. Even though the cast meals had always been erratic, producers had arranged the cameras with care and soft lighting in the hopes of capturing the customary blend of laughter, and the energy was different, yet it was still light shade. Ciara entered with her hair pulled back tight in a fitted cream dress, her gaze sweeping the table as if she were taking the temperature of each individual present. Leaning back in his chair, Mendeecees was 2 seats across, browsing through his phone as if he didn't give a damn who was looking. The unreadable expression on Erica's face, which could change into a storm or a smile at any moment, was visible. Across from him, it started out quite quietly. Small chat between drinks and plates. Kirk was recounting a long story about a failed business venture. Rashida occasionally nods along, to prevent him from going too far, cutting in. However, anyone observing closely could notice the sidelong looks and the tension that was slipping beneath the table. Ciara's eyes kept wandering to Mendeecees, but Erica continued to swirl her wine slowly while looking down at it. The moment became thicker in the air. Erica, she spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear while leaning forward and resting her elbows on the table. Even though she didn't bring it up, her remarks had unquestionable weight. With her gaze set on her glass, she started, "I've been holding something in, and it's been eating at me." The pause as a group was practically audible. When the forks froze mid-bite, the air shifted. Kirk raised his head in interest. Rashida felt trouble and her brows furrowed slightly. Mendeecees gave her a sidelong glance, as if he had heard this opening before and wasn't impressed. Ciara, however, sat up straighter. "I can feel where this is going." Erica inhaled deeply, before speaking again. "Backstage, Mendeecees told me something. There was something that went too far." It was an instant response. Yandi's lips pressed into a narrow line as she tensed. Kirk began to shift uneasily. Mendeecees didn't respond to Rashida's short glance, which was a subtle plea for him to speak. Rather, he leaned back with his arms crossed, perhaps defying Erica to continue. There was a long pause before Ciara broke it. "What did he say specifically?" For a beat, her eyes locked with mine. Before responding, "He remarked on my appearance and what I was wearing. It was not an honor. It was considered impolite." The energy instantly rippled throughout the table without any loud gasps or overthought reactions. Kirk said something while clearing his throat. Nobody was able to catch his breath. Evidently anticipating the outcome, Rashida put down her fork. Although Yandi's hand was clenched around her serviette, her face was unreadable. At last Mendeecees spoke in a soothing yet acerbic tone. "It didn't go that way." Erica laughed a little. The type of lacking in humor. "Naturally, you would say that." Ciara's voice became piercing. "So you're implying that she's lying?" Mendeecees avoided her gaze. "She's twisting things, in my opinion." In part because of the way he stated it, the words struck more forcefully than they should have. Dismissive, and nearly bored. As though preparing for a battle, Erica's posture straightened and her gaze hardened. The air was electrified between them, and the tables appeared to contract around them. When Ciara's gaze shifted from Erica to Mendeecees, her jaw tensed. When she saw someone being disrespected, she had always been outspoken about speaking out, and this time was no exception. She continued, raising her voice a little, "You think it's okay to just say whatever you want to people?" Mendeecees now turned to face her, his eyes unwavering. "You were not present. When someone is going too far, I can tell without having to be there. Return the favor." it started to break up the talk. Kirk, attempting to divert attention, Yandi refused to engage, shaking her head as Rashida said that this was going to turn left. However, Mendeecees and Sierra's bond only got stronger. Every utterance and every look seemed to light a fuse that had already been lighted. Now, Erica relaxed and let Sierra take the lead. Her own gaze fell on Mendeecees, as though she were quietly urging him to press on. So, let me get this straight, Sierra leaned closer to say. She says, you said something out of pocket, and your first move is to act like she's making it up. Mendeecees didn't hesitate to respond. There is a lot of talk in this group. Suddenly, it's a scandal when it's me. The term scandal seemed to loom large, raising the temperature even further. The condensation slipped between Sierra's fingers as her hand closed tighter around her glass. Although she wasn't yelling yet, there was enough edge in her voice for even the crew members observing from the sidelines to shift uneasily. With a stronger grin this time, Erica seemed almost content that the talk had ended precisely where it was supposed to. It was something she desired. Leaning closer, Rasheda whispered something to Kirk that caused him to look at the beverages on the table. Kirk could tell that Sierra's expression was more than just rage. It was the second before she did something she couldn't undo. Mendeecees, oblivious or indifferent, leaning forward now, he started to get closer to Sierra. Want to believe her? That's up to you, he responded softly. I don't have to explain myself to any of you, though. It was a beat of silence, the kind that seems to drag on forever. Sierra pressed her lips together and her gaze squinted. Erica's eyes darted between them as if she were observing a match that was about to light. Kirk felt it approaching and shifted once again. Sierra felt Rashida's hand brush against her arm. A silent warning that was entirely disregarded. Sierra stepped aside as Mendy reached for his drink. She tightened her grasp around her glass till her knuckles became white as her chair scratched across the floor. She just raised the glass, fixed him with her gaze, and flung the entire drink across the table in a single fluid move, without speaking or making a statement, in the direction of his chest. The wood clinked with ice, and liquid splattered across his shirt before spilling onto the ground. Suddenly, there were yells, gasps, and the scrape of chairs. After a half-second of inaction, Mendeecees pushed back from the table, his face unreadable. The one that the room was now in disarray. In a mixture of fear and hesitancy, crew members walked forward with their hands up. There was no time to cool down. Erica. Now that the moment was underway, nobody appeared to be interested in slowing it down. Sierra moved to close the gap between Mendeecees and herself by going around the table. Not that she was shouting, but the ferocity in her voice could not be ignored. You believe that simply because you've been here for a while, you can speak in any way you like. No, not with me. With no one, not even with Erica. With his elbows resting on the table, Mendeecees leaned forward once more. Additionally, you believe that you get to determine what truly transpired without your presence. I trust her. Sierra bounded back at once. Her promptness seemed to take him by surprise, if only momentarily. After blinking, he turned his head aside, a tiny grin tugging at the corner of his oral cavity. Numbers. Erica shifted her body slightly towards Sierra and crossed her arms in a gesture of solidarity. That's exactly what you did before you made the comment, except you smirked now. I should have just smiled and accepted it, but you laughed as if it were a joke. Mindy's voice became softer and more solemn. You omitted the section in which you mentioned me initially. That hit the room like a second thunderclap. Many looked at each other, not sure what he was referring to. Erica's voice rose for the first time, and her brows furrowed. He responded in a flat tone. That's not how I heard it, adding, don't twist this. What I said wasn't about you like that. With a frustrated groan, Sierra turned to face the other chairs at the table. People don't come forward when someone crosses the line for precisely this reason. There's always someone willing to turn it around on them. As if to reroute without really going into the fire, Kirk gave the table a little tap. Look, we're going around in circles. Perhaps we should all simply assume that he didn't finish. Erica's voice pierced his sentence as she leaned forward. Should you desire that I sit here and act as though nothing occurred? That will not occur. I will not back down. Mendeecees' chair legs scraped the floor when he moved it back a little. You are not required to give up. Stop pretending that your version is the only one that counts. The manner he delivered it made Sierra's mouth clenched once again. So, all of us are expected to believe you. That's it? He didn't blink when he met her stare. Whatever puts you to sleep at night, believe it. Around that point, everyone around the table appeared to collectively change. It was the contempt in his voice, not just the words it. He seems to condense the entire discussion into a brief enough point to dismiss. Erica appeared to be about to add something more, but instead she leaned back and pursed her lips. Along a thin line, Sierra's hands were now on her hips, but she remained upright. Even without words, her body language was loud. Finally, Rashidita spoke again, this time with greater conviction. This is precisely the type of content that spreads among blogs. If everyone continues, her warning was correct. There was already a crew member in the back being instructed to pull specific camera angles in case something went wrong. And there was a rumor that the producers were unaware that someone had recorded the entire affair on their phone. No longer was there a possibility that this would spill outside the set. It was almost a given. Still, nobody, with the exception of Yandi, who had vanished minutes before, stood up to depart. As if it were a game that no one wanted to play but no one could ignore, the others remained firmly entrenched in their spots, watching this slow, tense back and forth. Mendeecees' voice was almost too measured now, but he was calmer. Should you believe, go ahead and toss a beer at me? That will make you the hero. It speaks more about you than it does about me. Sierra did not recoil. No, it says it all about you. Kirk started to murmur something again, but even Rashida missed it this time. In silence, the producers debated whether to intervene or let the moment unfold as they looked at one another. Because the microphone remained live and the cameras remained up, the decision appeared to lean towards allowing it to run. Finally, with a softer but sharper voice, Erica leaned forward again. I don't require someone else's perspective is telling, but I need someone to fight my battles. Before returning to the table, Mendeecees' gaze shifted from her to Sierra. Someone murmured something in front of him, and he slowly sipped from a fresh glass of water. Think you have the complete picture? He added, but you don't. The words lingered there as a statement with some weight of their own, rather than as an apology or an olive branch. Sierra gave a little sardonic laugh and shook her head. Although she didn't answer this time, Erica's expression indicated that she wasn't done. Definitely not. There was a sense of the table holding its breath. The sound of shifting chairs or the clinking of cutlery is louder than it should be. The team had ceased their efforts to conceal their movements. No purpose was served. Mendeecees, Sierra, and Erica were the focus of every camera. The rest of the room seemed to vanish. The other actors sat in that gray area between interest and unease. When Sierra finally pulled herself back into her seat, she wasn't sure if they were witnessing a conversation or the start of something that may ruin the entire evening. However, her gaze never left Mendeecees. She walked slowly and methodically, as if she were choosing what to do next. Erica remained, leaning back with her arms folded, her eyes darting back and forth between them as if she was keeping score. Still drenched from the previous drink, Mendeecees appeared almost too calm. Additionally, that quiet was beginning to more vex everyone than if he had simply exploded. He stared at her without blinking. It's funny, Sierra said steadily. How the people who say the most out-of-pocket stuff are the same ones who try to play calm when they're called out. It's simply not calm. That caused Erica to sit up once more. Not worth shouting over. Now her voice was harsher. Since you were not the one who was insulted, do you believe it is not worth yelling at? I didn't disrespect anyone, so Mendeecees retorted. There was a low groan coming from the other side of the table. After being silent up until this point, Spice eventually rested her chin on her hand. I have better things to do than to spend the entire night back and forth with you. You may go now. Without glancing in her direction, Sierra shot. No one asked you to stay. Spice grinned and leaned back in her chair, obviously not falling for the ruse. Kirk chuckled quietly to himself, the kind of laugh that comes from someone who knows it's better to keep quiet. When Rashida gave him a stern look, he quickly stopped talking. The background noise was broken by Erica's speech. Wish to discuss. The words that were spoken. All right, let's discuss it. Mendeecees' eyebrows went up a little. Feel free. Her gaze was fixed on his as she inhaled. You're lucky, you can still wear that after everything you've done, you remarked, and I quote you. You laughed as though she were making a joke, and her tone was flat and purposeful. A few silent jerks slipped out of seats close by. At that, even Spice sat up straighter. The words were not denied by Mendeecees, but his expression changed, more calculating and less defensive. And you didn't include that, he said softly. Prior to my statement, you were telling people that I was too old to continue acting like a child. I was being attacked first by you. Kay gave a little, disbelieving laugh. So what? It gives you the authority to discuss my body. He continued, leaning forward. I didn't talk about your body. I mentioned how you always portray yourself as superior to others, and then become irate when they respond. Sharply, Sierra interrupted. You went too far. No. Regardless of whether she made a comment about your age, you went somewhere you shouldn't have. That's your assessment, he shrugged. Something in Sierra was sparked by the shrug, and she spoke up once more. It's basic respect, not simply my opinion. The weight of the interchange made the air seem to throb. Sierra was nodding, and Erica was following suit, her lips pulled tightly together. Between them, Mendeecees seemed to be carefully considering his next move. With a deep exhale, he finally leaned back once more. It may have been a conversation, all along. Rashida was drawn to his comment, but y'all want it to be a headline. Do you believe that someone here needs to fabricate a story to make a headline? Because of your inability to maintain decorum, you were just thrown a drink. It's not a fabrication. Mendeecees didn't answer her. He returned his focus to Erica instead. Erica, instead, you have the option to pull me aside if you didn't agree with what I said. But you desired a crowd. When you mentioned it, there was a crowd. Erica retaliated. So while I answer, you have one now. No one dared to laugh aloud, but a few people chuckled silently at the covert clapback. Although it was clear that Kirk was simply avoiding eye contact with people. He tapped his phone as if he had just received a message. Spice filled a second glass for herself. She gave a headshake. Sierra lowered her voice a little, still bending forward. Do you know what's wrong? You failed to notice the flaw in what you said. You said what Mendeecees gave her a prolonged glance. You're so certain that nothing I say matters, too. All right. I know what I heard, Erica said, interrupting. And they skept because I was there. The subsequent calm wasn't tranquil. The atmosphere was intense. The team was still listening to every word and every glare. Someone whispered that tonight's tape was already being marked for special review. The fans would dispute for days, and the blogs would devour it. Mendeecees put his glass away and got up. Noticing that the sound of the chair legs dragging across the floor broke the tension. You want me to apologize for something I don't think was wrong. Equally, he said. Additionally, that will not occur. His jaw tensed, but he didn't respond. Instead, he moved away from the table and towards the other side of the room, where one of the producers was standing. Then don't be surprised when people stop giving you the benefit of the doubt, Erica said, looking up at him without blinking. Erica sat forward, her eyes following him until he vanished from view, attention still clinging to the air as if it had nowhere else to go. And Sierra leaned back in her chair, tapping lightly against her glass as the conversation continued, only shifting into whispers as he walked away. The murmurs filled the room like low, every side conversation was tinged with the shock of what had just transpired. Many stood with a producer in the far corner, making slow gestures with his hands as though he was arguing. While the rest of the table sat in a weird state of limbo, half waiting to see if he would return and half trying to act normally. Rashida leaned in slightly, attempting to listen without drawing attention to herself. I swear. I wasn't. Erica's chair was now tilted towards Sierra. The two of them engaged in a quieter but no less heated conversation. I wasn't even going to bring it up, Erica muttered to herself. But given his recent demeanor, no, it had to be said. Sierra looked towards the corner and nodded, her eyes narrowing. And the way he tried to minimize it, that's precisely why I took the actions I did. He shook his head and chuckled a little, sitting 2 seats away. Do you really think you didn't just make this 10 times larger? Sierra's eyes shifted to him. The sound of her voice cut. It is often necessary to make things larger in order to persuade people to pay attention. The focus returned when footsteps were heard. Once more, Mendeecees approached the table, his face unreadable. The producer remained in the back, speaking into a headset. He stood at the head of the table, looking from Sierra to Erica and back again, instead of sitting right away. Well, here's what will occur, he said, his tone steady but tense. I'm not going to keep going back and forth with y'all about what was said. You have your story. I have mine. Fine, but I'm not going to be disrespected either, Erica said, lifted a brow. You also believe that you weren't impolite at first. That's all you can say, he said. It does not, however, imply truth. Rashida sighed and massaged her temples. This is so tiring, to be honest. I'm exhausted when you're trying to act like it doesn't exist, Erica retorted. However, when you're the one, it's about not wearing yourself out. It's enragement. Sierra's tone was fierce as she leaned forward once more. It's just not clear to you. Mendeecees glanced at her. You're making this your battle because it offers you an excuse to attack me, and I understand that. The remark struck like a spark amid parched grass. As Sierra's chair scuffed back once more, Rashida hurried to put her hand on Sierra's arm. Avoid it. It is not worth the effort. No, he won't sit here and ask me why I defend people, Sierra responded, raising her voice. I've experienced too much for me to tolerate such a mess. Mendeecees remained unflinching. And I've experienced enough to recognize when someone is merely playing for attention. After several drawn-out seconds of silence, Erica spoke again in a sharper but softer tone. Are you aware of what's sad? It could have been yours. You could have said, my bad. But instead, you doubled down, even if you didn't mean it the way it came out. His jaw tightened as he stared at her, but he held his tongue. Visibly uneasy, Kirk moved in his chair. Spice, who had been observing with a slight smirk, said something about how this would shatter the internet and took a sip of her drink before. Mendeecees finally said, I'm not going to. You can twist it. You can run with it. You can make it a storyline, that's on you, but I'm not feeding it. The word struck a different chord. Make it a storyline. The suggestion lingered in the air, not missed on anybody at the table. I apologized for something I didn't do. Then, don't be surprised when the storyline writes you as the villain. Erica exhaled slowly, her face hardening, and then she pushed her chair back and stood up, straightening her dress before leaving the table completely. Her heels clicking on the floor as she left, stated in a quiet voice, you can act like this is over, but it's not. She remained sat this time, watching her leave before returning her attention to Mendeecees. He remained silent. He simply sat down again, took up his unfinished plate, and resumed eating as usual. The previous 20 minutes had not occurred. Slowly, the conversation among the other table members resumed. However, there was a shift in energy, now brittle and restless. Behind the cameras, the team was already looking at each other like a crack in a piece of glass. While some shook their heads, others smirked. They discussed in whispers how quickly the leaks would begin. Someone said that a friend had already texted them to inquire about the veracity of the rumors. And Mendeecees remained quiet all the time. Erica remained absent. Sierra sat with her arms folded as well. It was obvious that she was still replaying every moment of what had just happened. And for the time being, that is the situation. With one remark, one confession, and one glass of alcohol flying across the table, an entire evening was completely turned upside down. Social media is already being overrun by fans with analyzing every smirk, every look, and every phrase captured on video to develop their own theories. According to some, Erica is finally calling out behavior that has been ignored for too long, and they are supporting her. Mendeecees is being supported by others who believe the entire situation was exaggerated for dramatic effect. Afterward, there are people who speak about Sierra non-stop, complimenting her for stepping in, and wondering if she went too far. The real deal, the details of what transpired are unknown to anyone outside that room. Furthermore, the accounts of those who were present are obviously not consistent. We are aware that these three will continue to be tense for some time to come. Whether it occurs behind the scenes or on camera, this type of cast fracture alters the entire dynamic. The type that viewers will remember long after the season is over. But now that Sierra has the opportunity to intervene and make her point as she did, I want to hear from you. Was Erica justified in placing it on the table in front of everyone? Do you believe Mendeecees was forced into a situation that he didn't deserve? You obviously know that this conversation isn't going to end here, so feel free to share your ideas in the comments. And don't forget to hit the like button if you've been following the chaos. Turn on notifications and subscribe for more so you don't miss the next time the set blows up like this. You could be the one to make a shift. The way that everyone perceives it.